I'm sitting in my lawyer's office right now, hands trembling as I sign the restraining order against my own son. The pen feels like it weighs 1,000 pounds. My attorney, a sharp woman named Patricia Chen, slides another document across the mahogany desk. This one's the criminal complaint. Fraud, identity theft, attempted financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult. I never thought those words would appear next to my son's name. But before I tell you how I ended up here, before I explain why I'm about to send my only child to prison, I need you to understand something. I loved that boy more than my own life, and he tried to destroy me for it. But hold on, before I continue with this story, I'd like to ask you something. Could you leave a comment below and tell me where you're listening from? What city? What state? What country? It helps me know I'm not alone in this. That somewhere out there, someone else might understand what it feels like when your own blood turns against you. My name is Margaret Sutherland. I'm 62 years old, and until 6 months ago, I lived what most people would call a blessed life in Scottsdale, Arizona. My late husband, Richard, passed away from a heart attack 3 years ago. He left me well taken care of, a beautiful home in the desert highlands area, investment properties in Phoenix and Tucson, a stock portfolio that had grown steadily over 30 years, and a life insurance policy that ensured I'd never want for anything. Richard was a commercial real estate developer, and he'd been smart with money. Very smart. We had one child together, David, our golden boy. David grew up with every advantage: private schools, tennis lessons, summer trips to Europe, a full ride to Arizona State University that we paid for anyway because we wanted him to graduate debt-free. He was charismatic, handsome, always knew how to make me laugh. After college, he got into pharmaceutical sales and did well for himself. Or so I thought. 4 years ago, David married a woman named Stephanie. I'll be honest, I had reservations from the start. There was something calculated about the way she looked at our house, the way she asked pointed questions about Richard's business, the way she steered every conversation toward money. But David was in love, and I wanted him to be happy. I kept my concerns to myself. I played the role of the accommodating mother-in-law. I smiled through the wedding, wrote them a generous check, and welcomed her into our family. After Richard died, David and Stephanie became more attentive. They'd visit twice a week, help with yard work, take me to doctor's appointments. I was grateful. I was lonely. The house felt enormous without Richard's presence, and having them around filled some of that emptiness. They'd stay for dinner, and we'd talk about their plans. They wanted to start a family, maybe buy a bigger house. David mentioned that his sales territory was expanding, that he was being considered for a regional management position. Looking back now, I can see how carefully they were laying the groundwork. It started small. About a year after Richard's death, Stephanie mentioned casually over coffee that they were worried about me living alone in such a big house. "What if you fell?" she asked, her voice dripping with concern. "What if you had a medical emergency and no one was here?" I assured her I was fine. I had a medical alert system, neighbors who checked on me, a housekeeper who came 3 times a week, but she persisted. "We've been thinking," David chimed in. "Maybe we could move in with you, just temporarily, help you manage the property, keep you company." I declined politely. I valued my independence. I wasn't ready to give up my space, my privacy, my autonomy. I could see the flash of disappointment in Stephanie's eyes, quickly masked by understanding. "Of course, Mom," David said. "We just want what's best for you." The next suggestion came a few months later. David wanted to discuss estate planning. He'd set up a meeting with a financial advisor, a friend of his, he said, someone who could help me optimize my assets, make sure everything was properly structured. The advisor, a slick young man named Trevor Walsh, spent 2 hours in my living room talking about trusts and tax strategies and legacy planning. At one point, he suggested I might want to add David as a joint account holder on my primary checking account and savings accounts. "Just in case something happens," he said. "It makes everything so much simpler for the family." Something about the suggestion made my stomach tighten. I thanked Trevor for his time and told him I'd think about it. After he left, David seemed irritated. "Mom, he's trying to help you," he said. "You can't be so stubborn about this stuff." But I held firm. Those accounts were in my name only, and that's how they were going to stay. The visits became less frequent after that. David always had an excuse. Work was crazy. Stephanie wasn't feeling well. They had plans with friends. When they did come by, there was a tension I couldn't quite name. Stephanie's smiles seemed forced. David checked his phone constantly. They'd leave earlier than they used to. Then, about 8 months ago, something strange happened. I was cleaning out a desk drawer and found some old mail, statements I'd forgotten to shred. One of them caught my eye. It was a credit card statement addressed to me for an account I didn't recognize. Capital First Bank. I'd never banked with them. I called the number on the statement immediately. The customer service representative confirmed that yes, there was indeed an account in my name. It had been opened 18 months prior. Current balance, $47,000. My blood went cold. "I didn't open this account," I told her. "This is fraud." She transferred me to their fraud department. They launched an investigation. They asked me to come into a local branch with identification. They pulled the application. The signature looked like mine, but something was off about it. The handwriting was similar, but not exact. The income information listed was accurate. The social security number was mine. "Who else has access to your personal documents?" the fraud investigator asked me. I thought about it. My attorney, my accountant, and David. David had helped me organize Richard's papers after he died. He'd had access to everything. My social security card, my tax returns, my bank statements. He'd spent hours in Richard's office, supposedly creating a filing system for me. I didn't want to believe it. I told myself there had to be another explanation. Maybe it was a clerical error. Maybe someone had stolen my information from a data breach. I filed a police report and disputed the charges. Capital First closed the account and began their investigation. I didn't tell David about it. Some instinct told me to wait, to watch, to see what happened next. For 2 months, nothing. Then the calls started. First, it was a voicemail from someone named Marcus at a collections agency looking for payment on a personal loan. I called back. Turned out there was a loan in my name from an online lender, $35,000, taken out 8 months ago, now in default. Then another call, this time from a furniture store in Phoenix. I'd apparently purchased $18,000 worth of furnishings and never made a payment. Then a luxury jewelry retailer, a high-end electronics store, a vacation timeshare company. Someone had been using my identity to rack up debt. A lot of debt. And I had a sinking feeling I knew who. I tried calling David. The phone rang and rang, then went to voicemail. I left 3 messages, no response. I texted him. "We need to talk, it's urgent." Nothing. Finally, I called Stephanie's cell phone. She answered on the 4th ring. Her voice was bright, cheery, completely unbothered. "Oh, hi, Margaret. How are you?" "I've been trying to reach David," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Is everything okay?" "Everything's great," she chirped. "Actually, we've been meaning to call you. We moved." The word hung in the air between us. "You moved?" "Yes, about 2 months ago, David got that promotion he was hoping for, regional director, but it meant relocating to Denver. It all happened so fast, you know how these corporate things go. We've been meaning to tell you. We've just been so busy with the move and settling in." 2 months. They'd been gone for 2 months, and no one had bothered to tell me. My son had moved to another state without a word. "Denver?" I repeated slowly. "And neither of you thought to mention this?" I know, we're terrible," she laughed, like it was all just a funny oversight. "We've been completely overwhelmed. The new house is amazing, though. 4 bedrooms, beautiful mountain views. You should come visit once we're settled." "I need to speak with David," I said, my voice harder now. "He's actually in a meeting right now. Can I have him call you back?" "Yes, please. Today? Of course, we miss you, Margaret. Love you. She hung up before I could respond. I sat there in my kitchen, the phone still pressed to my ear, listening to the dial tone. Something was very, very wrong. David never called back that day, or the next, or the day after that. I tried his number again. It rang twice, then an automated message. The number you have dialed is no longer in service. I checked the number 3 times to make sure I'd dialed correctly. Same message. My son had disconnected his phone. The phone number I'd had for him for 15 years was just gone. I called Stephanie again. It went straight to voicemail. I sent her an email asking David to contact me immediately regarding urgent financial matters. No response. I sent a text. Nothing. It was like they'd vanished into thin air. 1 month later, 33 days. To be exact, I received a phone call that changed everything. Mrs. Sutherland? This is Brandon Moore calling from Pinnacle Credit Union in Denver, Colorado. I'm calling regarding account number ending in 4782. You're listed as a co-signer on a home equity line of credit taken out by David Sutherland. The account is 90 days past due, and we're attempting to collect on the outstanding balance of $216,000. The room started spinning. I'm not a co-signer on anything, I managed to say. I don't even live in Colorado. According to our records, ma'am, you signed the application on February 14th of this year. You provided a copy of your driver's license, proof of income, and authorization for us to pull your credit report. The property is located at 8847 Whispering Pines Drive in Castle Rock. Do you have a different number where we can reach Mr. Sutherland? He hasn't returned any of our calls. February 14th. I'd been in Palm Springs that week, at a spa resort with my college roommate. There was no way I'd signed anything. This is fraud, I told Brandon Moore. I never signed any documents for you. I never authorized any credit check, and I have no idea what property you're talking about. There was a pause. Mrs. Sutherland, if you're claiming this is fraud, you'll need to file a police report and provide us with a copy. We'll also need to start our investigation process. But I have to tell you, the signature on these documents has been verified by a notary. If it's determined that you did in fact sign these documents and are now trying to avoid liability— I was out of state, I interrupted. Check your records. What date was this supposedly signed? February 14th, at approximately 2:30 p.m. at our Castle Rock branch. Pull the security footage, I said, my voice shaking now, because I guarantee you I'm not on it. But I think I know who is. That's when everything clicked into place. The sudden move to Denver, the disconnected phone, the refusal to respond to my messages. They hadn't just moved, they'd fled. And they'd used my identity to buy a house I'd never seen, in a state I rarely visited. Securing it with a line of credit they had no intention of paying back. They'd been planning this for months, maybe years. Every document David had helped me organize. Every personal detail Stephanie had casually asked about. Every time they'd suggested I add David to my accounts or sign power of attorney papers, just in case. It had all been leading to this. I didn't waste time. I called Patricia Chen, the attorney who'd handled Richard's estate. I told her everything: the credit cards, the loans, the furniture, the jewelry, and now the house. She listened without interrupting, and when I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Margaret, she finally said, her voice grave. What you're describing is a systematic scheme to commit identity theft and financial exploitation. This isn't a family dispute. This is criminal fraud. We need to involve law enforcement immediately, and we need to freeze your assets before they do any more damage. He's my son, I whispered. I know, Patricia said gently, but he's also a criminal, and if we don't act fast, he's going to bankrupt you. The next 72 hours were a blur of police reports, affidavits, credit freezes, and fraud alerts. Patricia brought in a forensic accountant who started tracing the paper trail. Meanwhile, I hired a private investigator named Daniel Reeves, a former FBI agent who specialized in financial crimes. I gave him every document I had, every statement, every suspicious transaction. "Find out what they've done," I told him. "Find out everything." Daniel worked fast. Within a week, he'd uncovered a web of deceit that made my head spin. The house in Castle Rock? Purchased with a loan secured against my credit and assets. They'd forged my signature on the documents, using a notary who was actually Stephanie's cousin. The furniture, the jewelry, the electronics, all delivered to that same address in Castle Rock. The credit cards? Used to finance a lifestyle that included expensive restaurants, designer clothes, a leased BMW, and a vacation to the Bahamas. Over the past 18 months, David and Stephanie had systematically stolen my identity and run up nearly $400,000 in debt in my name. But that wasn't even the worst part. Daniel discovered something else, something that made my blood run cold. David had been forging documents to try to gain power of attorney over my affairs. He'd created fake medical assessments claiming I was suffering from dementia and was no longer capable of managing my own finances. He'd consulted with an attorney about having me declared legally incompetent. The plan, as far as Daniel could piece together, was this: establish that I was mentally unfit, take control of my assets, move me into a memory care facility against my will, and then liquidate everything I owned: the house, the investment properties, the stock portfolio, everything Richard had worked his entire life to build. They were going to steal it all. And they were going to lock me away so I couldn't stop them. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. This wasn't just about money. This was about control. This was about erasing me. "Why?" I asked Patricia, tears streaming down my face. "Why would he do this? I would have given him anything, if he'd just asked, if he'd just been honest with me." Patricia's expression was sad but firm. "Because people like David don't ask, they take, and they convince themselves they're entitled to it. In his mind, you were sitting on all this wealth while he was struggling. He probably rationalized it, told himself he was just taking what would eventually be his anyway. But Margaret, you need to understand something. People who do this kind of thing don't stop. If he'd succeeded in getting power of attorney, he wouldn't have stopped at the assets. He would have controlled every aspect of your life, where you lived, who you saw, what medical treatment you received. You would have been completely at his mercy." The thought terrified me, but it also made me angry. Angrier than I'd ever been in my entire life. I wasn't going to let him do this, not to me, not to Richard's legacy, not to the life we'd built. I was going to fight back, and I was going to make sure he faced justice. Daniel continued his investigation, building an airtight case. Meanwhile, I worked with Patricia to secure restraining orders, file criminal complaints, and begin the process of disputing every fraudulent charge. The banks were surprisingly cooperative once they saw the evidence: forged signatures, transactions made while I was provably out of state, accounts opened with stolen documents. One by one, they closed the accounts and began their own fraud investigations. The debt collectors stopped calling. The credit reporting agencies corrected my reports. Slowly, painfully, we were undoing the damage. But David and Stephanie were still out there, living in that house in Castle Rock, spending money they'd stolen, completely unaware that the walls were closing in. Until the day the police showed up at their door. Daniel had coordinated with law enforcement in Colorado. They'd been watching the house for a week, documenting everything: the BMW in the driveway, the expensive furniture visible through the windows, the surveillance footage from stores where they'd used the stolen credit cards. They had enough evidence to arrest both of them on multiple felony charges. It was a Tuesday morning when they made the arrest. I wasn't there, but Daniel sent me the police report later. David answered the door in his pajamas. According to the officers, he seemed genuinely shocked. "There must be some mistake," he kept saying. "My mother gave me permission to use those accounts. She wanted to help us get established in Denver." Stephanie tried to run out the back door, but didn't get far. They were both taken into custody, booked at the county jail, and held on a combined bail of $500,000. David called me from jail that night. I'd been expecting it. Patricia had advised me not to answer, but I needed to hear his voice. I needed to hear what he would say. "Mom," he said, and he was crying. "Mom, please, this is all a huge misunderstanding. Stephanie and I, we were just trying to help manage your finances. We thought you'd have trouble keeping track of everything, and we didn't want you to be taken advantage of by strangers. We were protecting you." "By forging my signature?" I asked quietly. "By opening accounts in my name without my knowledge? By running up hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt? By trying to have me declared incompetent?" There was a long silence. "I don't know what you're talking about," he finally said. "Someone's lying to you. Someone's turning you against me." "The police have the documents, David. They have the surveillance footage. They have the paper trail. They know everything. And so do I." His tone changed then. The tears stopped. His voice went flat, cold. "You're really going to do this? You're going to send your own son to prison? Over money?" "This isn't about money," I said, and my voice didn't waver. "This is about you trying to steal my life, my autonomy, my dignity. You weren't protecting me, David. You were destroying me. And you knew exactly what you were doing." "I'm your son," he said, and there was an edge of desperation now. "I'm your only child. Dad's gone. I'm all you have left. If you do this, if you press charges, you'll lose me. You'll be alone. Is that what you want?" And in that moment, I saw him clearly for the first time in years, maybe the first time ever, not as the golden boy I'd raised, not as the son I'd loved and sacrificed for, but as the man he actually was, entitled, manipulative, cruel. He wasn't sorry for what he'd done. He was sorry he'd been caught. And he was trying to use my love, my grief, my fear of loneliness as weapons against me one final time. "I'm already alone," I told him. "I've been alone since the moment you decided to betray me. Goodbye, David." I hung up. He tried calling back 17 times that night. I blocked the number. The legal process moved faster than I expected. The evidence was overwhelming. The prosecution offered David and Stephanie a plea deal. If they pleaded guilty to the fraud charges, agreed to make full restitution, and cooperated with recovering the assets, they'd face reduced sentences. David's attorney advised him to take it. Stephanie took the deal immediately. David held out for a month, insisting he was innocent, demanding a trial. But eventually, faced with the mountain of evidence and the testimony from the notary who'd been paid to forge my signature, he caved. The sentencing hearing was on a cold morning in October. I sat in the courtroom, flanked by Patricia and Daniel, and watched my son stand before the judge. He'd lost weight. His expensive suit hung loose on his frame. He didn't look at me. The judge was a stern woman in her 50s named Elena Rodriguez. She'd reviewed all the evidence, all the psychological evaluations, all the victim impact statements. When it was my turn to speak, I walked to the podium with a letter I'd written the night before. "Your Honor," I began, my voice steady despite the tears threatening to fall. "David Sutherland is my only child. I gave birth to him. I raised him. I loved him with every fiber of my being, and he tried to erase me. Not just steal from me, erase me. He wanted to take away my freedom, my autonomy, my very identity. He wanted to lock me away and convince the world I was incompetent, all so he could have access to money that he felt entitled to. That kind of betrayal, that kind of calculated cruelty, it doesn't come from a place of desperation or confusion. It comes from a complete lack of empathy, a complete disregard for my humanity. I'm not here asking for mercy. I'm here asking for justice. Not just for me, but for every older person who's been victimized by their own family members. People who trust the ones they love most, only to have that trust weaponized against them. Judge Rodriguez sentenced David to 6 years in federal prison, followed by 5 years of supervised release and full restitution. Stephanie received 4 years. The house in Castle Rock was seized and sold, the proceeds applied to the debt. The credit card companies wrote off most of the charges, taking the loss rather than pursuing me further once the fraud was confirmed. My credit was restored. My accounts were secured with additional protections. Slowly, painfully, my life began to return to something resembling normal. But normal wasn't the same anymore. Normal would never be the same. I sold the house in Scottsdale. Too many memories, too many ghosts. I bought a smaller place in Sedona, surrounded by red rocks and silence. I started seeing a therapist, working through the trauma, the betrayal, the grief. Because it was grief, mourning the son I thought I had, accepting that he'd never actually existed. The boy I loved was a fiction. The man who tried to destroy me was the reality. I joined a support group for victims of elder financial abuse. I heard stories similar to mine. Children who drained parents' savings, grandchildren who forged checks, caregivers who manipulated vulnerable seniors. The statistics were staggering. Billions of dollars stolen every year, families torn apart, lives destroyed, and most of it went unreported because the victims were too ashamed, too heartbroken, too afraid of being alone. I started speaking publicly about my experience. Local news stations interviewed me. I wrote an op-ed for the Arizona Republic. I partnered with elder justice organizations to raise awareness. I wanted people to know that this could happen to anyone, that predators often wear familiar faces, that trust, while precious, must be balanced with vigilance. David writes to me sometimes from prison. The letters always follow the same pattern: initial denial, then minimization, then blame shifting, and finally, a request for money for his commissary account or legal fees. I don't respond. Patricia advised me to keep the letters as evidence, but not to engage. "He's still trying to manipulate you," she said, "even from behind bars." She's right. I can see it in every carefully chosen word, every attempt to reframe the narrative, to make himself the victim. Stephanie was released after serving 3 years. I heard through mutual acquaintances that she moved back to California, changed her name, and is working as an office manager somewhere in San Diego. She never apologized. She never tried to make contact. I think in her mind, I was the obstacle between them and a comfortable life. She probably still sees it that way. There are days when I'm angry, furious, days when I want to scream at the unfairness of it all. I gave David everything, every opportunity, every advantage, every ounce of love I had to give. And he looked at all of that and decided it wasn't enough. He wanted more. He wanted it all. And he was willing to destroy me to get it. But there are also days when I feel something close to peace. Days when I look at the life I've rebuilt and realize that I'm stronger than I ever knew. Days when I sit on my patio in Sedona, watching the sunset paint the rocks in shades of amber and crimson, and I feel grateful. Grateful that I caught it in time. Grateful that I had the resources and the support system to fight back. Grateful that I'm still here, still free, still myself. I think about Richard sometimes, wonder what he would say if he knew what David had done. Part of me thinks he'd be heartbroken, but another part of me, the part that knew Richard best, thinks he'd be proud of me for standing up for myself, for refusing to be a victim, for choosing justice over maternal instinct. I'm 62 years old. I've lost my husband and my son, but I haven't lost myself. And maybe that's the most important thing. If you're listening to this and you're in a similar situation, if someone in your family is pressuring you to sign documents you don't understand, to give them access to your accounts, to add their names to your property, please, please be careful. It doesn't matter if they're your child, your grandchild, your niece, or nephew. Love doesn't give anyone the right to exploit you. Trust must be earned and re-earned every single day. Keep your important documents secure. Monitor your credit report regularly. Don't sign anything unless you fully understand it and have had it reviewed by your own attorney. And most importantly, remember this: your assets are yours. You earned them. You have every right to protect them. You don't owe anyone access to your life savings just because they're related to you by blood. I learned that lesson the hardest way possible, but I learned it, and I survived it. And if you're facing something similar right now, I want you to know that you can survive it too. You're stronger than you think. You're braver than you know. And you deserve to live the rest of your life with dignity, security, and peace. Don't let anyone take that away from you, not even your own child. That's my story. That's my truth. I'm Margaret Sutherland, and I'm still standing.